You know what amazes me? Most folks spend more time planning their weekend than planning their life. And that is why weekends are fun and life becomes hard. It does not have to be that way. I want to talk to you about something so powerful yet so simple that it might just change everything for you. Focus on yourself and stay silent. Some of you might be wondering what that means. Let me tell you. In a world where everybody is shouting to be heard, the person who turns inward and works quietly often achieves the most extraordinary results. The person who focuses on personal growth rather than public approval often finds the success that eludes those chasing applause. I learned this lesson years ago as a farm boy in Idaho. We had this neighbor, Mr. Johnson. Now, Mr. Johnson did not talk much about his crops. He did not boast about his methods. He just worked diligently, studied constantly, and refined his approach year after year. While others talked at the local diner about what they were going to do, Mr. Johnson simply did it. And you know what? His farm outproduced everyone else's in the county. His silence was not weakness. His focus was not selfishness. These were his strengths. That is the first principle I want you to understand today. Focus on yourself does not mean ignore others. It means recognize that the only person you can truly change and develop is you. And staying silent does not mean never communicate. It means be judicious with your words and generous with your actions. Now let me tell you why most people fail to achieve what they truly want in life. They are constantly looking outward instead of inward. They are so busy watching what everyone else is doing that they lose track of their own path. Social media has made this 100 times worse. Now you can waste not just minutes, but hours, days, weeks of your precious life watching other people pretend to live theirs. Have you noticed how the loudest people in the room are rarely the most successful? The person announcing their goals to everyone, posting every small achievement online, seeking constant validation, rarely has the focus required for true mastery. They are too busy talking about the work to do the work. There is an old saying I like. Empty vessels make the most noise. Think about that. The full vessel, heavy with content, makes little sound when moved. But the empty one rattles and clangs with every small disturbance. Which vessel are you in your mind? I had a mentor once who told me, Jim, success is not about what you say you will do. It is not even about what you try to do. Success is only about what you actually do, consistently, when no one is watching. That stuck with me. What you do when no one is watching. That is the true measure of your commitment. Let me share something with you. The greatest accomplishments of my life happened during periods when I went quiet, when I stopped announcing my plans and simply executed them, when I reduced my social calendar and increased my study time, when I said no to distractions and yes to development. I remember when I started studying success. I did not create a podcast about it. I did not become a success tourist taking selfies with successful people. I just read hundreds of books. I filled notebook after notebook with insights. I applied what I learned, failed, adjusted, and tried again. And I did this quietly, consistently, for years before I ever stood on a stage to speak about it. This brings me to the fundamental principles of personal transformation. If you want different results, you must become a different person. And becoming a different person requires focused, intentional work on yourself. First, you must take complete responsibility for your life. Not partial responsibility, not most of the responsibility, complete responsibility. The moment you blame anything outside yourself for your condition is the moment you surrender your power to change it. Second, you must dedicate yourself to learning. The books you do not read cannot help you. The courses you do not take cannot teach you. The mentors you do not seek cannot guide you. Your education, both formal and self-directed, must become a lifelong pursuit. Third, you must implement what you learn immediately. Knowledge without action is merely entertainment. I meet people all the time who could quote every self-help author from the last 50 years, yet their lives show no evidence of this wisdom. Do not be a collector of quotes and concepts. Be a practitioner of principles. Fourth, you must develop extraordinary discipline. Average people have wishes. Successful people have goals and systems. The bridge between the two is discipline, the ability to do what needs to be done even when you do not feel like doing it. Fifth, you must measure your progress honestly. No excuses, no rationalizations. The numbers do not lie. Your bank account, your health metrics, your relationship quality, your business growth. These are the scorecards of your focus and discipline. And sixth, perhaps most important for our topic today, you must learn the discipline of silence. The restraint not to share every thought, announce every plan, seek validation for every small victory. This discipline alone separates the achievers from the dreamers. Now let us talk specifically about this discipline of silence. Why is it so powerful? Because silence creates space for depth. When you are constantly outputting, talking, posting, sharing, you leave little energy for input, listening, learning, absorbing. Think about the greatest thinkers in history. They required periods of deep silence and solitude. Einstein with his violin and long walks. Darwin with his daily thinking path worn into his garden. Edison in his lab for hours of uninterrupted focus. These were not people constantly distracted by the noise of other people's opinions. Silence is also the soil in which your authentic voice grows. When you are constantly reacting to others, constantly seeking approval, constantly comparing yourself to everyone else, you lose touch with your own inner wisdom. Your unique gifts get buried under an avalanche of outside influence. I want you to consider something profound. The average person today consumes more information in a day than someone in the 1800s might have encountered in a year. Yet are we wiser? Are we more fulfilled? Are we achieving more of significance? Or are we just more scattered, more anxious, more uncertain? The solution is not more information. The solution is more integration. Taking what you already know and actually applying it, testing it, refining it, mastering it. And this integration requires periods of silence and focus. There is another important benefit to staying silent while focusing on yourself. It prevents you from diluting your goals through premature sharing. Have you noticed how talking about your goals often gives you the same emotional satisfaction as actually achieving them? This is dangerous. Studies show that when you announce your goals publicly, your brain experiences a social reality that can actually decrease your motivation to do the hard work necessary to achieve them. You get the reward before the result. The most determined people I know keep their biggest goals relatively private. They might share them with an accountability partner or a close mentor, but they do not broadcast them to the world. They do not need the likes and comments. They need the results. Now let us talk about how to build yourself while others are busy talking. This is where the real advantage comes in. While others are debating, discussing, and distracting themselves, you can be developing. First, create a clear personal development plan. What skills do you need to acquire? What knowledge gaps must you fill? What habits need changing? Be as specific as possible. Becoming a better communicator is too vague. Practicing public speaking for 30 minutes daily and reading one book on communication per month is specific and actionable. Second, create boundaries around your development time. This time must become sacred. No social media, no unnecessary meetings, no distractions. Even 30 focused minutes per day adds up to 182 hours per year. That is the equivalent of 4.5 40-hour work weeks of pure development. Third, document your progress privately. Keep a journal, a spreadsheet, a system that allows you to see your growth over time. This serves two purposes. It keeps you accountable to yourself, and it provides motivation when you can see how far you have come. Fourth, seek quality feedback from selected mentors. Notice I said selected mentors, not random opinions. Choose people who have achieved what you wish to achieve, who understand your goals, and who will give you honest, constructive feedback without tearing you down. Fifth, practice in private before performing in public. Musicians understand this. They do not just show up on stage without countless hours of private practice. Yet in business and personal development, many people want to skip this critical step. They want the applause without the preparation. Sixth, become comfortable with being misunderstood temporarily. When you are focused on long-term growth, while others chase short-term validation, some people will not understand your choices. That is okay. Results speak louder than explanations. Let me tell you about the compound effect of quiet focus. Just like compound interest in your financial investments, compound growth in your personal development creates extraordinary results over time. If you improve just 1% each day, after 1 year you will be 37 times better than when you started. Not 37% better, 37 times better. That is the power of compound growth. But this magic only works with consistency, and consistency requires focus. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a week and drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of focused effort. They get discouraged by short-term plateaus and miss the long-term exponential curve. I remember talking with a young entrepreneur who was frustrated with his progress. He had been working on his business for 6 months and felt he should be further along. I asked him to list everything he had learned in those 6 months. The skills developed, the connections made, the lessons from failures. The list went on for pages. I told him, you have not been failing for 6 months. You have been building the foundation that will support massive success. But if you quit now, that foundation serves nothing. He stayed the course, focused quietly on improvement, and 3 years later had a multi-million-dollar company. The compound effect also works because silent focus allows for deeper work. When you are not constantly switching between tasks, not constantly checking notifications, not constantly seeking validation, you enter what some call a flow state. This is where real breakthroughs happen. In this state, your subconscious mind makes connections your conscious mind might miss. Solutions to problems appear seemingly from nowhere. Creativity flourishes. But this state requires extended periods of uninterrupted focus that most people never experience because they cannot bear the silence. Another benefit of the compound effect is that it builds momentum. Success begets success. Small wins create confidence that leads to bigger wins. But this flywheel effect requires consistent energy applied in a consistent direction. If you are constantly changing course based on the latest trend or criticism, you never build momentum. Now let me share some practical daily habits that will help you focus on yourself while staying relatively silent. These are things you can implement immediately. First, begin each day with a period of silence. Even 15 minutes of meditation, prayer, or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts before engaging with the noise of the world can center you for the day ahead. Your most valuable thoughts often come during these quiet moments. Second, consume information intentionally, not passively. Be ruthless about what you allow into your mind. Unfollow accounts that do not add value. Unsubscribe from emails that waste your time. Turn off notifications. Choose books over scrolling. Quality over quantity. Third, practice strategic ignorance. You do not need to have an opinion on everything. You do not need to stay updated on every news story, celebrity drama, or social media debate. What if you redirected that mental energy toward your most important goals? Fourth, implement a no complaint policy in your life. Complaining is perhaps the least productive use of words ever invented. It solves nothing, attracts negative people, and reinforces a victim mindset. When you feel the urge to complain, ask instead, what can I do about this situation? Fifth, schedule regular periods of digital detox. 1 day per week without screens can do wonders for your mental clarity and creativity. If that seems impossible, start with 4 hours and work your way up. Sixth, keep a private progress journal. Document your thoughts, insights, failures, and wins where only you can see them. This creates accountability without the pitfalls of seeking external validation. Seventh, develop the habit of asking questions rather than making statements in conversations. This accomplishes two things. It keeps you in learning mode rather than performing mode, and it makes you a better listener, which ironically makes you a more valued conversation partner. Eighth, practice delayed response. Not everything requires your immediate reaction. When you receive a message that triggers an emotional response, wait 24 hours before replying if possible. This small gap allows wisdom to enter where reactivity might have prevailed. Ninth, create and protect blocks of deep work time. This is time specifically dedicated to your most important projects with no interruptions allowed. Even 2 hours of deep work can produce more meaningful results than 8 hours of distracted effort. And 10th, end each day with reflection rather than entertainment. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? What did I do well? Where could I improve? What am I grateful for? This simple practice accelerates your growth dramatically over time. Now let us address how to overcome the noise of modern life, because the reality is that we live in the loudest era in human history. Not just physical noise, but informational noise. Everyone has a platform, everyone has an opinion, everyone is shouting for attention. The first step is to recognize that most of this noise is designed to capture your attention, not improve your life. Social media platforms, news outlets, and most content creators are competing for your most precious resource, your attention. When you understand this, you can be more intentional about where you direct that resource. The second step is to create physical spaces in your life that support silence and focus. Your environment shapes your behavior more than most people realize. If your phone is always within reach, notifications enabled, you will check it constantly. Create tech-free zones in your home. Set up a dedicated workspace that signals to your brain it is time for focused effort. The third step is to carefully curate your social circle. Jim Rohn, that is me, famously said you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are constantly seeking attention, constantly talking without substance, constantly distracted, guess what effect that will have on you? Seek friends who value depth over display, who ask meaningful questions, who challenge you to grow rather than validate your comfort. These relationships may be quieter, but they will be infinitely more valuable. The fourth step is to practice mindful consumption of all media. Before reading an article, watching a video, or scrolling a feed, ask yourself, will this information still matter to me in a month? In a year? Is this contributing to my goals or distracting from them? The fifth step is to recognize and resist outrage culture. Many media sources have discovered that triggering outrage is the fastest way to capture attention. But constant outrage keeps you focused externally on things you often cannot control, rather than internally on what you can control. The sixth step is to create meaningful metrics for your life and focus on those rather than vanity metrics. Followers, likes, and shares are vanity metrics. Health, relationships, financial independence, contribution, and personal growth are meaningful metrics. Now let us talk about results that speak louder than words. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the philosophy of focus on yourself and stay silent proves its worth. I want you to imagine two people starting businesses at the same time. The first person creates social media accounts immediately, starts telling everyone about their entrepreneurial journey, posts inspirational quotes, shares every small win and setback, and spends hours networking and promoting themselves. The second person quietly studies the market, develops their product or service until it is excellent, tests it with real customers, refines based on feedback, builds systems and processes that work, and only then, when they have something of real value, do they begin to talk about it. Which business do you think will be more substantial after 2 years? I have seen this scenario play out countless times, and almost without exception, the quiet builder outperforms the loud announcer. The same principle applies in personal development. The person constantly talking about their transformation rarely transforms as significantly as the person quietly doing the work. The person posting workout photos from the gym parking lot rarely gets as fit as the person too focused on their training to think about social media. When you focus on creating genuine results, a fascinating thing happens. You do not need to talk about yourself because others will do it for you. Satisfied customers become your marketers. Visible results become your resume. Your work speaks for itself. I have a friend who built a manufacturing business to over $50 million in annual revenue before he ever gave an interview or appeared in any press. When asked why he stayed so under the radar, he said, "I was too busy serving customers and solving real problems to worry about publicity." Now, he cannot keep the press away, all wanting to know the secret to his overnight success that took 15 years to build. There is an old proverb that says, "Let another man praise you and not your own mouth." This is not just good character advice. It is good strategic advice. Validation that comes from others carries infinitely more weight than self-promotion. Results also create a virtuous cycle in your own psychology. When you see the fruits of your focused labor, it reinforces your commitment to the process. It builds genuine confidence that no amount of external validation can provide. It keeps you playing the long game when others get distracted by short-term gratification. Perhaps most importantly, results silence the critics, both external and internal. You no longer need to defend your approach or justify your methods when the outcomes speak for themselves. This frees up tremendous mental and emotional energy that you can reinvest in further growth. Now let us explore the wisdom of strategic silence, because there are times when staying silent is not just productive, but absolutely essential for success. Strategic silence gives you an information advantage. When you listen more than you speak, you learn things others miss. You notice opportunities others overlook. You understand people at a deeper level, which is invaluable in business relationships and leadership. There is a reason why skilled negotiators speak less than amateurs. They know that every time they open their mouth, they potentially give away information without gaining any. They understand that comfort with silence often causes the other party to fill that silence, revealing more than they intended. Strategic silence also gives you time to formulate thoughtful responses rather than reactive replies. In a world of hot takes and immediate reactions, the person who takes time to think before speaking has an enormous advantage. I was once in a business meeting where a potential partner made an offer that seemed appealing on the surface. Everyone around the table was eager to accept. I simply asked, "Can we have 24 hours to consider this?" During that time, I identified 3 major flaws in the proposal that would have cost us dearly. Strategic silence saved us from a costly mistake. Another aspect of strategic silence is knowing when explanation diminishes impact. Sometimes your actions are more powerful without your commentary. Sometimes your achievement stands taller without your narration. Sometimes your point lands stronger without your clarification. Great leaders understand this instinctively. They know when to speak at length and when a few carefully chosen words or even silence will have the greatest impact. They are confident enough to let their decisions and results communicate for them. There is also wisdom in staying silent about your advantages. In competition, whether in business, sports, or even intellectual pursuits, there is rarely benefit in announcing your strengths, strategies, or discoveries before you have fully leveraged them. I remember talking with a successful entrepreneur who told me he discovered a highly profitable market niche that had been completely overlooked by major competitors. Instead of writing articles about it or speaking at conferences, he quietly built a business that dominated this niche for 3 years before anyone noticed. By then he had established such a strong position that new entrants struggled to compete. Finally, there is profound wisdom in staying silent about your good deeds. Genuine contribution comes from a desire to give, not to be recognized for giving. The moment you publicize your generosity, you change both its nature and its reward. As we begin to close our time together, I want to talk about your magnificent future through focused self-development, because that is what all of this is ultimately about. Not hiding your light, not diminishing your impact, but building something so substantial that when you do shine, it illuminates everything around you. Imagine a version of yourself 5 years from now who has applied these principles consistently, who has focused on personal growth rather than public perception, who has developed skills, knowledge, character, and resources through dedicated daily effort, who has created genuine results through concentrated work rather than scattered attention-seeking. This version of you does not need to convince anyone of your value because your value is self-evident. This version of you does not struggle to find opportunities because opportunities are attracted to your developed capabilities. This version of you does not fear criticism because your foundation is too solid to be shaken by mere words. This future is available to anyone willing to make the trade. Less external validation now for more substantial impact later. Less social affirmation today for more meaningful contribution tomorrow. Less noise, more signal. I believe this approach to life is not just more effective, it is more fulfilling. There is a deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you have built something real, something substantial, something that serves others, even if the building process happened largely out of public view. So, let me leave you with this challenge. For the next 30 days, significantly reduce how much you talk about yourself and your plans. Instead, redirect that energy into actual development and execution. Keep a private journal of your progress if you wish, but resist the urge to broadcast. At the end of 30 days, assess what this shift has done for your focus, your productivity, and your peace of mind. I suspect you will discover what many before you have found. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. The more you hear, the more you can learn. The more you learn and apply, the more you can achieve. Focus on yourself and stay silent, not forever, not completely, but more than most do in this noisy world of constant sharing and seeking validation. Do this, and you will build something worth talking about, something that ultimately speaks for itself.